Welcome to another episode of We Don't Die Radio. I'm your host, Sandra Champlain, author of the best-selling book called We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, you will realize that this is one of these live video episodes that are so rare. And if you're listening on iTunes or iHeartRadio, you can certainly feel free to go to YouTube and type in We Don't Die Radio and see this video interview. Who I have next to me is my superstar friend, Sonia Rinaldi. And it's curious because she lives in Brazil, I live in Massachusetts, and what are we doing together? Well, we just completed 5 days together of a course called the We Don't Die Discovery Course. And during the course, it was all things afterlife, but really getting deep into mediumship, precipitation mediumship, healing, and her specialty with just capturing trance images. So Sonia, I thought it would just be fun. Yeah. You and I just talking about how the week was. It was really good.
It was wonderful. The people, the organization, thanks to Sandra, everything was perfect.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, it's important to me to share the people that I know and that I love and that I trust that are really making a difference in the world of the afterlife.
Yeah, you have been.
She's one of them.
She's gathering wonderful mediums, and I had the opportunity to participate and watching some of them here. And I was really impressed with some events, some facts that happened. Oh my, I think that your work is absolutely unpayable. Do you say that? Unpayable? You have no way how to, you can...
Like priceless is maybe how we would say it in America.
It is priceless. I'm learning.
You're doing great. You speak more English than I speak Portuguese.
Okay.
Absolutely. And for those people who don't know, Sonia has been working for over 30 years, working with the deceased, and I think most of those years you were capturing audio.
Yeah, for many years, maybe more than half of this time, I just worked with voices. In truth, I didn't know exactly or never thought that I could ever get images until one day the other side requested. And as always, it was a command, let's say, that I receive, and then the first thing is to think, oh my God, how can I record video? I didn't know anything about. I didn't have a camera, and then I started all the process and created the situation and followed the inspirations, and here we are. So yeah, many years after, but yes, I started with voice.
Yeah, and what we're talking about, this is life after death evidence. This is recording the sounds of what do you say, like chopped up voices, things like that?
Gibberish.
Gibberish.
Yes.
And most of the times you were working with a parent, would it be?
Yeah, I mean, yes. Usually moms.
Moms.
That looks for me because they suffer, because they lost someone loved. And we have been pleased to be able to help these people. Mm-hmm. And here in this event, we had some moms that received the trance image, means the photo of their loved ones that passed. And they are so, I think that some of them I knew before an experiment, and they were one type of person, sad. Mm-hmm. The life was heavy. And after they saw, either listened to the voices of their boys or girls, or saw the trance images, they are other persons now. Obviously they feel, obviously these will never go away. But I think they face in another way the loss. They know that their children are alive. So I think that there is nothing more important than that. As you usually say, I also think that there is no worse thing in life than to lose someone loved. I think that you can suffer of many problems, But I think this one is very difficult.
I agree. Grief to me, and that's what led me on my journey, is the most difficult pain that I feel any human will experience. And for however many years, Sonia, working with a parent, all for free, never charged a penny, she would reunite children because their voices would show up on her recordings. And for the past several years, she's been experimenting, and we'll talk in a minute some of the experiments you did here, but the deceased loved ones, their pictures would appear with smiles, showing real evidence that they remain, because these pictures just come out of static. I mean, do you want to explain the experiments that we did here this week?
Yeah, here specifically, we have had the opportunity to use for the first time 6 microprojectors. At home I was using just 3. Here we had some more. And I had the idea some months ago in Boston when we were there. I had the idea of using the projectors, projecting a static color, static. It had to be over something, because if you don't hold the light that's coming from the projector, it would cross directly to the walls, right? And that is not what we wanted. So I decided to put an egg. In truth, it is the mold of chocolate
mold.
Chocolate egg.
Easter egg mold.
Yes, Easter, for Easter. And I initially used just one, and the statics, and later, as per the suggestion of a wonderful medium, he suggested me to use 2 eggs, one inside the other, so it was a double egg, and the statics again. And then it was when your father appeared and other loved ones, so it was magic.
It feels like magic to me, because all along my journey I'm meeting different people, and I remember hearing of you maybe back in 2002, just thinking someday I'd love to meet this woman, never thinking that here we would be together.
Yeah.
But Scott Milligan was here during the course, and Scott Milligan to me is the top physical medium in the world. There are others, but Scott's passion is reconnecting people with their loved ones.
Yeah.
And physical mediumship is something that's very hard for the brain to get around. And if you don't experience it, I think it's easy to think it's fraud,
yes,
can't possibly be. Yeah. It was in this very room that we had a circle of chairs together. The medium is in a cabinet, it's called. It was just a makeshift box with black curtains. He's sitting in a chair, he's tied to it, and
yes,
that shows that he is not getting out of the chair, doing any manipulations. A group of, I think there were probably about 40 of us here, yes, and we'd sing songs to build energy, and we'd laugh, and out of the cabinet, yes, it's in the dark, he produces a substance called ectoplasm that is like a vapor, and the people in the etheric world, the deceased people, can step into it, put their face into it, speak again. There's spirit children that come around. We have many toys in the middle of the circle, many of them with glow-in-the-dark tape, so you can actually see things moving around. I don't know if you saw this, but there was like a glow-in-the-dark small plaque, and I was sitting right next to the cabinet, and I could see this plaque to me, and there were 4 little fingers that showed me the plaque.
Oh, beautiful. I didn't
And
see,
then
I
go
was
back.
a little bit far.
But they were like alive fingers.
But
and they were black. It was not flesh colored, it was black colored, because I hear the ectoplasm can either show as white or black. I don't understand how it works, but I don't have to understand. And it was really beautiful. And then there was a woman, Patty, and her daughter was able to speak to her. And really incredible. Again, I know if this is your first episode, you might think that's far out, that might be crazy, but I recommend you listen to some of the earlier episodes with Scott Milligan. It's very rare, but it's very, very real.
Yeah. Maybe we should also mention that in the seance before, this one that I mentioned, we had the presence, the materialization, let's say, of Amber, who is Lisa's daughter.
That's right.
And I was just aside Lisa. She was just at my side, and I could listen better the conversation because she was very close. And one thing that it was so incredible for me was that in a certain moment, the mother that was aside me, and the sister daughter, both were singing the same song. I thought that was incredible because, you see, one was alive, one was in our side, and the daughter, both singing. I think this is absolutely amazing. And one thing that I observed is that when we left the room, at the end of the seance, and I was closer to Lisa, I think that I never saw someone as happy as she was. I think that if she had won in lottery, if she had any other thing, she couldn't be that happy.
No.
It was something that she couldn't describe. She said, I don't know if I run, if I shout, I don't know what to do. But she was so happy for having received the visit of her daughter that talked to her, and at the end, all of us in the seance could listen, Amber making. So it was incredible.
And it's very sweet. And there's specifics that come out. They're not general. They're things. I remember at a seance earlier this year here in Orlando, there was a gentleman sitting next to me, and he had a nickname for his daughter that only the two of them know. Mm-hmm. And out of the darkness, she said, whatever she said to Daddy, and you called me your little whatever this was, and to have this grown man cry because no one could know that. So it is that person. And Amber has come through in your pictures, your trance images as well.
Yeah, and it was very nice because she died at the age of 25. Mm-hmm. But she appeared as if she was something like 8 or 10. Mm-hmm. And in the whole video, in the sequence, so it was not just one frame, it was something like some seconds that she remained as a child, and she smiled and she looks to one side and to another, and Lisa was, she couldn't believe. And then she sent me some pictures of the time that Amber was about that age, and it was just the same. And I keep thinking, why the other side sometimes, and this is very frequent, they send the trance image of the girl or the boy of some of their childhood, and obviously we don't know exactly why, but I think that it is maybe because these are pictures that the mother never saw. Right. This doesn't exist at all, and we don't know if these are memories that the girl or the boy wants to send as a happy time. But I don't know, it is something extra that one day we will understand.
What I think is magnificent too is it Murray that came through as a young man? Betty Ann's husband?
Yes. Oh yeah, many times.
We've spoken about this before on the show, that when we cross over, transition, we can be whatever age we wish, our best age, our best health. And so we often hear through mediums that like for example, one of the mediums that did a reading for me, she was talking about my father, and she was actually a spirit artist. So not only did she talk about my father, her hand was busy drawing a picture, and the story plus the picture showed my dad when maybe he was in his 20s, and she said, well, that was his favorite age. And I know through the trance images, some older people, like in the case of Betty Ann's husband, comes through as a young man, and just imagine.
It is always like that. In truth,
yes.
It is said even in the spiritist literature that yes, in the other side, even that you died with 90 years old, 80 or whatever, you look like 40 and healthy. So in truth, it is the reorganization of the consciousness that is much better. They are not using that old body anymore. So yes, and also this happens to animals. So whenever you lost a dog with the age of 16, let's say, years old, he will come as 2 years old, and sometimes we can compare pictures of the dog, and it is him.
Same dog. It's so nice. And the intelligence. Now here we are, a group of however many, putting on this event, but I can't help but imagine how many are working in the invisible world, because if we go back to Boston, I believe, is that when you found out from Daniel about the
the communication of Daniel was for the second, yes, and for the first, when I started with the egg was in Boston.
Okay.
I didn't have the egg yet.
Right. Well, here's how it went. Scott, who is the
Yes.
physical medium, is also a trance medium. So he can sit in front of the room, closes his eyes. We'll listen to 3 songs usually to blend with his spirit team. And there's a question and answer period that we can discuss things about all topics, really. But there was some words for Sonia about how to progress her
Yes.
experiments. So one was the idea of the, how would you even say,
Yeah,
the mold, the bubble inside the bubble.
Yeah, in truth, they used the word dome.
Dome.
But my dome is the egg because it is.
Yeah, it works.
It is. Yeah, it works, so it's okay.
It works.
Yeah.
And then you said for that experiment, we needed some small projectors. Scott was very generous and got these projectors.
yeah.
And you called it the Milligan experiment. And then Sonia showed up at We Don't Die Orlando, end of March, with the results. And this is when we actually see, they're so beautiful, the faces of so many people.
And we are progressing with this experiment. Now we are in Milligan experiment version 4.
Version 4.
Yeah, and we got in here also a hint, a hint from the other side, just from Daniel, is one of Scott's guides, not only to use the 2 eggs, but also to use the running water. So obviously I will have to think how to put all these working. Also he asked to have the projectors turning around, so so that the light doesn't remain stopped still, but it will run aside the egg. So they are sending hints so that we can progress.
Right.
And this is very important, because otherwise if it depends on us to discover, it may take some months. So they shortcut our way for us.
And I do believe the spirit world works with all of us, giving ideas and
the
things
time.
like that. But to get the direct message through Scott's mouth and so specific, it's really interesting, because even though it might be Daniel or Eric speaking, it is their voice for the mind of many, many people, because for all the scientific information to come out is just amazing. What we just did in this room, which was great, is the whole group, there were just over 40 of us, were in here, and in the center of the room there was a circular table, and you had the eggs and she had the projectors. We had a TV on the right side of the room projecting what was happening, and we just treated it like we were in Sonia's laboratory. And so she was busy taking the pictures and the videos.
Recording videos.
And we added to it, like we had in the seance conditions, singing, having powerful prayer, and just to see if the energy would give us any different results. Now the hard part comes in, is Sonia now has hours of work to do, because even in 1 second of film could be 32 different frames. And so she, this is a labor of love, will in time go through these videos, and I have no doubt there will be images, because some we saw with our eyes.
Yeah, in truth, in the experiment of today, something different happened, which was the following. Whenever you record and you have light, how would say, flashing, I don't know, moving, obviously, even that they created the image, it is, as you said, and sometimes it is one image, it's a complete face or whatever, one among 30 in 1 second. So it is so quick that when you are recording, usually you don't perceive. At the maximum, you have the impression that you saw something, but thank God it is recorded, so you can see later. But you cannot see too much live. But in the experiment of today, we don't know exactly what they did, but they retained the light still so that everybody could see what was being formed, and for some seconds or maybe 2 minutes, we could see faces forming and some big eyes, and it was still. So they had not only the ability of creating the image itself, but also to hold the light, which is possibly something else that we don't know. But besides the experiment of today, I also recorded with each one of the groups. So there are some million trance images. Some already saw, and
it's incredible. We broke into 4 different groups, so be about 10 people in each group, and over the 5 days, people would have 3 hours with Sonia and created we used a smaller room as a little laboratory, and different experiment. You have different kinds of cloths that we could...
Yeah, different resources.
Yep, some different colored lights. There was like vapor from a small humidifier.
Yes.
And the same thing, we had the TV set up, and so the other people in the room could see what was happening. And what it seemed like to me in some of them is, even though I knew, say, Nick was behind the screen, to me, with my eyes, it looked like his face was changing.
Yes.
So I think somehow they might manipulate our faces to create a new face.
And to bring sometimes the deceased ones. What is fantastic, for instance, I was recording in one moment one mother, Elisa. She lost a boy, and I was recording her face, and she changed it into so many other, including possibly the apparition of Olivia, whose mother is also here. And up to a moment that I was looking at the video, as I just met Elisa for some minutes, I didn't know who Elisa was, because she appeared so different in so different frames.
Right.
So who is Elisa really? Is this one? No, this is different from this one. So she changed in front of the camera. So this phenomenon is called the Transfiguration. And this happened with Elisa and others, which is a different phenomenon, different from the vapor, for instance. But this is... Let's see how many loved ones appeared. Yeah, well, I have lots of videos to see.
I know she has a lot of work ahead of her. But I'm excited too, because this is the first time you've been with people and showing us what to do.
Yes.
It is my feeling that something like this, there's a reason we were all together. And I remember when electronic voice phenomena started being known in the world. Do you remember the movie White Noise had come out?
Yes,
and it was a horror movie.
Horrible.
Well,
that was something. It was not a positive contribution. It was something that. I think that the director or whoever, the producer, thought that if he made something, transmit something good, people wouldn't be, would enjoy.
Right.
So he mixed with the terror, and so I think that all characters of the video dies. So
yeah, I think so.
Oh my God, it's so horrible. It has nothing to do with reality. By the opposite, I think that this has been EVP or instrumental transcommunication, which is something similar, has been an incredible tool from the other side to help people,
right? And
not to show what the video showed. It
not
was
to scare people.
It was scary, and it was full destruction. This is not real, but it showed a lot.
It did. Well, that's what I wanted to say, because it was the movie. I don't remember the plot of the movie, but they would record the sound of white noise, static or things like that. And then on the playing, it was all this scary stuff. But what it did is it got people interested in looking up on the computer what is electronic voice phenomena. And because of that, a lot of people experimented with it, even myself, and got some really accurate, beautiful messages of love funny things. You know, those are the kind of messages that come through, not the scary stuff. But as far as instrumental trance communication, it is our dream that when people realize that they can experiment with this, that it's not just one woman in Brazil.
Yes, of course.
It's more people. And when we start experimenting and the time comes that maybe our dog, our cat, our mom, our dad, our child, or it could be, like you say, the extraterrestrial people.
Yes.
There's something like 50 billion planets in the solar system, or not solar system, in the universe. And I personally think there must be beings other than ourselves that are more intelligent. But I think having you demonstrate this past week is just the start of it. In fact, my great friend who's behind the camera now, Robert Lyon, we are creating the dream is to have a documentary on you, Sonia, on your past, present, future, and
God.
about instrumental trance communication through the images.
Yeah, initially I didn't like the idea
No.
because of my personality. I don't like to appear too much, and Sandra knows that. But then Robert told me, no, this is important for having registered something that in the future can be used. They can, it is a document that you can later see, oh, this happening and it was this way or that way. So, okay, then I said, okay, let's do it.
And I always say too, it's about the message, not the
Yes.
messenger. She has no big ego. She's a
Thank
very real
God,
person.
no.
But for me personally, like when the first cell phones came out, remember they were these big
Oh, yes.
boxes and
Yeah,
things, and
yeah.
and then more minds got involved, so that now we have the technology we have today. I have no doubt when people realize the reality of instrumental trance communication, that more, maybe even the young minds will think of new ways.
Of course, yes.
And it takes time. I mean, it was a long time before you first got.
Yes, for sure. I think that the first tentatives has more than 100 years. Obviously, it didn't exist electronics or not even electricity, but they tried with some kind of poor resources, but it seemed to have Father Landel de Moura, I think a Brazilian, he succeeded apparently because it was registered in some books about him, that he could talk to a little box that he kept in his pocket. And obviously he was a priest, so in truth he couldn't do this, but people that was around him could perceive that from the voice, whatever it was, voices, and he talked to the box. So possibly he was the first instrumental trance communicator. But even now, so it is more than 100 years. Yeah, so it is a longer way. But as Sandra says, I think now the time is going fast, and progress is coming very quickly. I think that maybe in 5 years or 10 years, things will be absolutely different. We see from Boston to now, I think it was 4 months. And the trance images, it was a jump from the point I was and now what I had with all these new ideas of X and the statics. So we are moving ahead, and I feel that the other side is in a hurry to bring something very concrete, very solid for our side.
And Father Landel and Nikola Tesla, not only have you heard voices, but they have shown their trance images. And it's really amazing because they're the same people working on the spirit team. I'm sure there's many others as well.
Oh, for sure. Lots of them, some Nobel Prizes, we know, that work on the stations now, in the transmission station, for North and for South. And I imagine how many geniuses that are pleased to work with Tesla, because Tesla is presently coordinating all these efforts. And whenever somebody may say, oh, Tesla, oh, no, he wouldn't do that. Oh, be sure. It was his dream when he was alive, the communication, by that time he said, with other planets. Because obviously we didn't talk about afterlife or anything. But he was already very, very, very interested in all these matters of communication.
Yes.
And
he predicted the cell phone.
yes,
And one of his,
in future would be.
he describes perfectly what we have currently in our pockets, the mobile phone with all the.
Now imagine him
Yeah.
having incredible, much more resources that he had when he was here. So now he has brilliant minds work with him to make this link interdimensions, and he is succeeding. So every time I get amazed myself when I see, even recording here, I brought, as you mentioned, the humidifiers, so that we could record the vapor. And we just put the vapor closer to the attendees of this event, and the vapor was coming here, obviously with in the normal velocity you couldn't see. Sometimes you could see, but it vanishes very quickly. But then I saw already one of those videos, and so many things was created, shaped in the vapor, faces around, closer to the person that was here. That case was Stephanie. She lost a boy, and so many faces all around her. So it is an incredible technology, how they can manipulate and shape something that is in our space-time.
Yeah, it's so great. And even for me, Sonia every so often sends me images of things that she's recorded, and I remember just seeing some pictures that just warmed my heart. They reminded me of what I thought my dad would have looked like when he was a young man. And so just to myself, I was talking to the invisible space, and I said, Dad, if you're around, go to Brazil, go see Sonia. And we actually have two pictures, I believe are my father, very clearly. We have pictures that resemble them from him living on Earth. But there is this faith that there is an afterlife. I was a skeptic, I didn't believe. I moved into having a faith, then I moved into having a knowing. But to see the picture, it's like beyond knowing. It is so sure, so definite, and there's so much comfort there. And with having the comfort that our loved ones are still alive, we can go on and live our life. So the blessing we have, and with the documentary, as long as it takes to produce, will give people that comfort, that assurance. I think it will get other people excited to try this.
Yes, sure.
And it can really make a difference. So we are starting a Kickstarter campaign and asking for some donations to make it possible for Robert and I to go to Brazil, and for the whole production costs. And there's some great gifts that will be included for your donation as well. So in the description of this episode will be a link to Kickstarter to that. But as far as this goes, this whole week, I just want to share also, we had Carrie McLeod and Philip Dykes. They are two of the best evidential mediums in the world. And one of the experiments they did, they were blindfolded, they had their back to the audience, and giving very accurate readings to people that are so specific, and so much love came through. And they're super. And then Nick and Stephen, who run Banyan Retreat in the UK, I met them maybe 5 years ago. They talked about healing, and as we are souls having a human experience, how to tap into our own healing power. And Reverend Kevin Lee was here talking about what's called precipitation mediumship, which is amazing, talking about even the Bang sisters who lived, I don't know how long ago, but they would have blank canvas and some paint separate, and out of the ether, paintings would show up on the canvas. And there's many more of those kind of things. We did a great exercise, well, not physical exercise, but we each had a shoebox, and inside it we put some gel pens, there were some index cards and some crayons, and he taught us how to sit and be quiet, and how our own energy, that the spirit world can work through us to put images on those cards. And again, this is something, if you're interested in it, it could take years of practice to learn something like that and to blend. But even on the first experiment with many people in the group, in fact, one guy, he had on one of his index cards, there was perfect dots of each one of the colors that was in his box that was on the paper. Yeah, I got nothing, but I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, I still have that skeptical mind, which I think is good to have.
Yeah.
Because I'm imagining how would that work, and,
Yes.
but there are people that are practicing this, and really beautiful images come.
It was an incredible opportunity to learn. It was for our attendees learned, and so did we.
Right.
So we learned a lot of everything.
Yeah, and there's such a freedom to be with a group of people that we're able to explore this, even if we have our doubts, to be in a space where
We could talk and
we can talk, and I say witness the miraculous when the faces come through on the images, or when Phil and Carrie give an evidential reading that you know that person is there, and even Scott with the demonstrations. It's really great. So we will be holding many more We Don't Die conferences. And if you go to WeDon'tDieRadio.com, there's a link for events. And depending on when you're watching this, you'll see what's coming up in our future. But I'm so excited, and I know, and I really do believe that our grief, and it's our deepest pain, and it's some of the worst things that can happen to us, really can provide us the opportunity to go looking for answers and discover. That's why we called it We Don't Die Discovery Course. Discover some of the answers and discover this world of what's real. I mean, there are people on planet Earth, we got one right here, that are taking pictures of not people, but people show up. And it's our loved ones, and it's really a beautiful thing. So Sonia, I thank you.
My pleasure.
From the bottom of my heart for being a friend and your commitment to healing broken hearts.
Well, I think that I have been learning so much, and thanks to Sandra, in truth, my work is spreading all around the world. And I thank you for this. I take the opportunity to thank you publicly, because I think that you were chosen, mainly by Tesla possibly, to say, Sandra, okay, spread, do your work. And he is doing his part, and we are all together working, and it is wonderful.
We are. Both sides of the veil know that there's a deep need to have the truth that we don't die be out in the world, so that people can live their lives, they can breathe again. And if you are someone who's lost a loved one, first of all, they're not lost. It's a terrible expression, but it's one we use. They are right over your shoulder. They are cheering you on in your life, and they will be right there to meet you again when it's your time, when you take the last breath. But your life matters. You are a special person. You're one of a kind, and I know life can be tough. But if you want to join in, go to WeDon'tDieRadio.com. There's now well over 300 episodes that talk not just about life after death, but helping through grief and how to live a powerful life. So you can also join us on Facebook. Just type in We Don't Die Listeners, and there's a huge community of people that you can be free to be yourself and explore this. I will, until I take my last breath, do my very best to share
So do I.
on planet Earth the evidence and the reality that life after death is real, and that our lives matter. So Sonia, with that, I say thanks again.
My pleasure,
Thanks,
anytime.
Thanks to the man behind the camera for believing
Robert.
in us and coming along this adventure. Again, if you scroll down to the bottom in the description, you can see the link both to Sonia's website, and We Don't Die Radio, and our Kickstarter campaign. Because just imagine being part of making this available in the world. You know, I can see kids trying this, and I can see
hope so.
it, even just like the cell phone. I think it really, the technology can happen.
And mainly with the facility that the children has nowadays.
Yes.
Oh, hey, well, things will go faster and faster.
Exactly. And they might find things that we don't yet know
Yeah,
about.
for sure.
So thank you to you, my precious listener or viewer. Thank you for being part of We Don't Die Radio. Whether this is your first episode or your 300 and something episode, thank you for listening. Our home base is WeDon'tDieRadio.com. There you can get a free copy of my book in PDF form, We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. I also have a very healing audio called How to Survive Grief. There's a PDF file, my 19 reasons to believe in the afterlife, and there's so much more. So thank you for listening or viewing, and we'll see you soon.